I still remember her exact words. "You'll never be anything." That was the last day I cried over someone else's opinion. I was 17 years old, sitting at my best friend's kitchen table, eating dinner with a family I thought loved me like their own. And her mother looked me dead in the eyes and said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. No hesitation. No apology. Just certainty. Like she'd already decided my entire future and was simply letting me in on the verdict. I didn't argue. I didn't cry, not in front of her. I picked up my bag, walked out that door, and made a decision standing alone on that sidewalk in the dark. A decision that took years to pay off. But when it did, she was watching, and there was nothing she could say. Let me take you back, because to understand what that moment meant, you need to understand where I came from. I grew up with my mom, just the two of us. My dad left when I was 5 and never really looked back. My mom worked 2 jobs most of my childhood, a diner shift in the mornings, a cleaning company at night. We weren't poor in the dramatic sense, but we were the kind of family where a broken car meant a missed bill, where back-to-school shopping happened at thrift stores, and I told myself I preferred it that way. I was a decent student, not exceptional. I wasn't on student council. I wasn't the star of anything. I was the quiet kid who sat near the back and read during lunch, because I didn't always know how to fill silence with other people. That version of me. She was easy to underestimate, and a lot of people did. But there was one person who never made me feel small. Until she did. Maya and I met in 7th grade. She sat next to me in English class and borrowed a pen she never returned. And somehow that was the beginning of the closest friendship I'd ever had. We were inseparable for years. Her house became my second home, maybe my first home in some ways, because it was warm and loud and full in a way mine never quite was. Her dad was quiet and kind. Her younger brother was a chaotic little gremlin I adored. And her mom, Sandra. Sandra was the kind of woman who filled every room she walked into. Loud laugh. Strong opinions. She cooked enormous meals and called everyone honey and made you feel, at first, like you'd been folded into the family. I spent holidays there. Birthdays. Long summer weekends. I helped set the table and washed dishes without being asked, because I wanted Sandra to see that I was worth keeping around. Looking back, I was always performing for her approval, and I never once asked myself why it never quite came. The first sign came maybe a year into my friendship with Maya. I'd gotten a good grade on a history project, an A-, which felt huge for me at the time. I mentioned it at dinner, casually just sharing. Sandra smiled and said, "That's sweet, honey," then turned to Maya and asked about her volleyball tryouts. It was nothing. I told myself it was nothing. But it happened again. Every time I shared something, a small win, a plan, a dream I'd been turning over in my head, Sandra had a way of redirecting, of making whatever I said feel like a detour, in a conversation that mattered more somewhere else. Once, I told her I was thinking about going to college for business. She tilted her head a little. Said, "Well, we'll see," that was it. Just, "We'll see," like I'd said something naive. Like she already knew something about my future that I didn't. I noticed it, but I dismissed it every single time. Until one night. I couldn't anymore. The summer before senior year, something shifted. Maya got into a regional honors program, a big deal, genuinely earned, and I was proud of her. But I noticed Sandra started using it as a measuring stick. Around me specifically. She'd mention Maya's program in conversations where it didn't belong. She started making comments about the kind of friends you keep when you're going places, always vague enough to brush off, always specific enough that I felt it. One evening, I overheard Sandra on the phone. I wasn't snooping. I was coming downstairs to get a glass of water, but I stopped on the staircase when I heard my name. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught enough. That girl. No direction. I don't know why Maya still. Her voice dropped before I could hear the rest. I stood there in the dark for a full minute, not breathing. Part of me wanted to walk back upstairs and pretend I hadn't heard it, but something colder in me filed it away. Because I knew then that what Sandra showed me at the dinner table was not the whole picture. 2 weeks later, the dinner happened. The one from the beginning of this story. But now I can tell you what actually led to it. Earlier that day, Maya had come to school buzzing with news. She'd been selected for a scholarship program. A local one, not huge, maybe $1,200, but meaningful. And I had applied for the same scholarship. I didn't get it. I found out that morning. I was already raw when I sat down at that table. Sandra knew. Maya must have mentioned it because Sandra brought it up herself, casually, like she was making conversation. She said she was so proud of Maya. Then she looked at me. And the smile slipped just slightly. "These things aren't for everyone," she said. "Some people have it and some people just don't." I sat very still. And then she said it. Directly. Quietly. Like a diagnosis. "Honestly, you're a sweet girl. But you'll never be anything. You don't have the drive. I've watched you for years." The table went completely silent. Maya looked at her plate. And I realized. She wasn't surprised. She had heard this before. I didn't explode. I want to be clear about that. Part of me wanted to. But something in me went very, very quiet instead. I pushed my chair back slowly. I picked up my bag from the floor. Sandra was still talking, something about meaning well, and I just stopped listening. I looked at Maya. She finally looked up. And I said quietly, "Why didn't you tell me?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. I walked out. I sat in my car for 40 minutes before I could drive. I was shaking, not from crying, but from something that felt more like voltage. Like something had just been switched on inside me that couldn't be switched back off. Maya texted me that night. She didn't mean it like that. Then 3 minutes later, she worries about me. She just says things. I didn't respond. Not that night. Because there is no version of those words that comes from a person who believes in you. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a thought was forming. A very clear, very specific thought. The next few months were the hardest. I lost Maya. Not all at once, it was a slow fade. She'd reach out, I'd respond. But something had cracked and neither of us knew how to fix it. By winter, our texts were down to maybe once a week. Then once a month. Then birthdays only. I grieved that friendship like a death. Because it was one. Losing a best friend when you're 17 is its own specific kind of pain. It touches everything. Every memory has her in it. Every inside joke belongs to both of you. And I had to figure out who I was without that mirror. My mom noticed something was wrong. She didn't push. She just started leaving cups of tea outside my bedroom door at night. That's how she loved, quietly, through small gestures, through presence. And sitting in my room those nights, surrounded by that silence, I started to hear something underneath the grief. Something that sounded less like sadness and more like resolve. Sandra had handed me something without realizing it. She had given me the clearest possible target. So at this point, here's where things stood. I was 17, freshly friendless, still stinging. And I made a decision that sounds simple, but wasn't. I decided to become undeniable. Not to prove Sandra wrong in some dramatic moment. Not to chase revenge for its own sake. I decided that the best response to someone who tells you that you have no future is to build one so solid, so real, so visible, that their words become a joke. I applied to every scholarship I could find, local, state, private foundations. I got 4 of them over the next 2 years, totaling just over $9,000. I enrolled in a community business program that first summer, $40 a month, taught me more than I expected. I stopped performing for other people's tables. I built my own. And I stopped explaining myself to anyone who hadn't earned the right to question me. That shift in mindset, that specific one, changed the texture of every year that followed. The next few years were quiet in the way that real work always is. Nothing dramatic, just consistent. I graduated. I got into a 4-year university on partial scholarship and took out a manageable loan for the rest. I worked 20 hours a week through college, retail, then an admin role at a small marketing firm where someone eventually noticed that I was good at things they hadn't asked me to be good at. I started freelancing on the side, Small projects at first, $50 here, $120 there. Then bigger ones. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not my mom, not old acquaintances. I just kept building quietly. There's something powerful about working in silence, about not needing to announce your progress to people who doubted you. Because the announcement is so much better when the thing is already done. I was 23 when the thing finally became something I couldn't have explained to 17-year-old me if I tried. And that was the year Sandra saw it. Maya got married. I found out through a mutual contact who mentioned it in passing, not unkindly. She'd sent an invitation, it arrived late, maybe a mistake, maybe not. I didn't go. But about 4 months after the wedding, Maya reached out. A real message. Not a happy birthday. She said she'd been thinking about me. She said she was sorry. She said her mom had recently gone through something difficult. Her parents were separating, the house was being sold, Sandra was moving into a smaller apartment and scaling back significantly. And then Maya said something that hit differently than I expected. She said, "My mom saw your company's name somewhere. Online, I think. She asked me about you. She wanted to know if it was really you." By that point, I had built a small but real consulting business. 6 full clients, recurring monthly revenue just over $11,000 a month, and a reputation in my field that had taken years and every ounce of what I had. I hadn't announced it. I hadn't posted about Sandra. I hadn't done anything except work. Maya told me her mom had gone quiet after she confirmed it was me. Just quiet. No comment. No spin. Sandra, the woman who had looked at a 17-year-old girl eating at her table and told her she had no drive, no future, nothing, had nothing left to say. And that silence, that was everything. I'm not going to stand here and tell you I don't think about it sometimes. I do. Not with bitterness, more like wonder. That a single dinner table moment could become the hinge point of an entire life. I responded to Maya. We've had a few conversations since. Careful ones. Honest ones. I don't know what we are to each other now, not what we were, but maybe something. As for Sandra, she's never reached out. I don't expect her to. I don't need her to. Because what I learned, the real lesson, not the feel-good version, is that other people's ceilings only hold you down if you agree to live under them. Sandra's words had power for exactly as long as I let them. The night I walked out of that house, I stopped letting them. And every year since then has been mine, built on nothing but time, stubbornness, and a very clear memory of being told I had no future. That memory, I kept it. I still keep it. Not as a wound. As fuel, if you've been told by someone, anyone, that you don't have what it takes. I want you to ask yourself whose opinion that actually is, and whether you've decided to carry it. Drop in the comments. Has someone ever underestimated you in a way that ended up driving you forward? I genuinely want to read them. And if this story moved you, if any part of it felt familiar, please hit like and subscribe to Dossier Karma. It costs you nothing, and it means more than I can say. I'll see you in the next one.